Alright, and here we are. Gems and drops. Gems are fed to familiars in the same way as other treats, but instead of improving natural abilities, they enable them to learn new tricks. And here's a list of all of the gems that confer tricks. I won't necessarily, read every single one word for word, but I'll give you a moment just to take a quick look at what we have here, and move the list down when I feel like you've had enough time to look at the list. Let's give you 10 seconds, I guess. Alright, that should be more than enough time. Oops. Actually, I could have just zoomed that out this whole time. I was an idiot. My mistake. But here's the rest of that list. If you want to get a quick look, pause. I'm just going to continue onward. Drops are items that familiars consume in order to metamorphose. When your familiar is ready to metamorphose, feed it a drop just as you would any other treat. Familiars become much more powerful when they metamorphose, so be sure to give them a drop as soon as you have the opportunity. Bear in mind, however, that familiars must be given the appropriate drop for their sign. Common drops are sun drops, star drops, moon drops, and planet drops, prompt metamorphosis in familiars of the sun, star, moon, and planet signs respectively. We also have jumbo drops, which have jumbo sun drops, star drops, moon drops, and planet drops, prompt further change in metamorphosed familiars of the corresponding sign. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to our very next subject to cover, Tahiti and the Fairygrounds. I will see you all in just a moment. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, covering Tahiti. Before we get into reading these actual sections, I'd like to mention that it considers that Tahiti is part of the Winter Isles, something I find quite strange because the Winter Isles are up in the north, and obviously being the Winter Isles, they are cold. But Tahiti isn't cold, it's actually a tropical climate near the more southern area, which I just found bizarre. But I digress. Tahiti, a small isolated island covered in a thick forest, untouched by human hand. Not even the most adventurous of fishermen who work nearby have dared to enter the forest, and very few people know what secrets it contains. The Fairyground. Hidden away inside the forest is the village home of the fairies. The village is overlooked by a mountain that's so large its summit is wrapped up in clouds. We actually know that that's Drippy's mom. You can actually see a little bit of her there. The clouds are blocking her face, but you can see her. You know what you can see. And now we go to the Fairyground. A fairy village deep within the forest. The Fairyground is a curious village, hidden deep within the forest at the center of Tahiti. It is home to all manner of fairies, who light up the dark forest with their constant laughter and grilled cheese snacks. Essential information for Tahiti. The climate is hot, but cool in the shade of the trees. The local delicacies is Fairy Rarebit. Local character is cheerful and big-hearted. The festivals that take place here are the Tidy Titters Comedy Festival. A place of interest, the Cavity Club, a legendary venue where all the great fairy comedians cut their teeth. Comedians have 3 performances a day to show the audience what they are capable of, and hopefully get some laughs in return. The Cavity Club's audience are a famously tough crowd, and fairies know that if they can make it here, they can make it anywhere. Alright, but with all that said and done, we move on to our next subject. The jellyfish that was inside the Fairy Godmother, the royal jelly. I will be with you again in just a moment. Legendary Beasts number 3. Tentacles from the Deep. A monster that appears whenever there's a rainbow. Even the youngest children in Castaway Cove are familiar with the legend of this sea monster. Supposedly, a rainbow reveals itself to night fishermen out at sea, and when they paddle out to investigate its origin, their boat is gripped by giant tentacles and dragged down to the depths. The legend goes on to specify that should anyone manage to escape the tentacles, they will be overcome instead by dazzling lights which rise from the seabed. Note that the consequent absence of survivors makes this legend difficult to verify. And now we move on to see the creature itself. And here it is, in its royal glory, the royal jelly. There shouldn't be too many animations here. I should be able to figure out what it is when it's ready, or when it's done, rather. Funny, it looks like it has a smile on its head there. I'll wait, of course, for all the animations to play through. I think after this one... Yeah, that looks like the last animation. Okay, good. We're going to scroll down. Royal Jelly. An enormous gelatinous sea creature whose transparent flesh reveals a hypnotic array of colorful flashing innards. Enemies that enter its territory are entranced by its beauty, but soon find themselves wrapped in its tentacles, being lifted toward its gaping mouth. It is resistant to water and weak to fire. Unknown what sign it's under, unknown where it can be found, but it drops Spirit of the Storm. Its notable attack. The beast builds up an enormous electrical charge, then releases it in a blast that sends its prey's entire body into spasms. Dark. But with that, we move on to the story. One of the 12 Wonders, I believe they're called. It's been a while since I've done a lesson, you'll have to forgive me for being a little rusty on the names of what we're going through. But yes, we got a story that we need to cover, so I'll be going over that, and that's where we'll end the lesson for the day. The Fifth Tale. The Boy Who Would Be God. The Wizard Who Controlled the Clouds. There once was a boy wizard who was endowed with a great deal of magical ability. No sooner was he able to walk than he could cast spells no other wizard could, controlling the clouds above and making great seas and mighty mountains move at will. In truth, such feats did the boy more honor than he deserved, for he had not practiced any more diligently than other wizards. His talents were innate, and had been with him since birth. The boy, however, grew up quite certain that he had been blessed by the gods, and came to believe that his rightful place was among them in heaven itself. No sooner had the thought crossed his mind than the boy became desirous to make it an immediate reality. Boys who are born with such exceptional powers are seldom accustomed to waiting. A trial from the gods. The boy made for Jabbar al-Dakhan, the highest mountain in all the world, and climbed to its summit, reasoning that the god should hear him more clearly if he were closer to heavens. Gods, I beseech you to listen. I am the most powerful wizard in this world. Verily, no man alive is my equal, and thus I believe that my place is in heaven with you. I wish for you to consider me one of your own. The heavens responded with an enormous thunderclap. The boy's wizard's insolence had roused the passion of the gods. Thunder was followed by a bolt of lightning aimed directly at the boy. But the boy was ready. With a simple wave of his wand, he swatted the lightning away. "Do you see?" he cried to the gods with glee. "Do you see how powerful I am?" At length, a voice responded from the heavens. "Boy, if you truly believe yourself to be as powerful as a god, then you may prove it by taking this trial. Overcome it, and your wish shall be granted." The boy leapt with a great joy upon hearing these words, believing as he did that no trial was beyond his powers. Suddenly, however, everything became quite dark. The boy had no idea where he was. Indeed, his hand could not be seen in front of his face. The voice spoke once more. "Boy, this is the world of darkness. Your task is to tolerate it for 8 days. So it's a simple matter of waiting, thought the boy relieved. That shall not prove difficult. But the voice went on. There is a door in front of you, boy. Raise your hand, and you shall feel it. On the other side of the door is the world of light, where all godly knowledge resides. Enter, and you shall become one of us. The door, however, must not be opened until 8 days have passed. With that, the voice fell silent, and all was quiet once more. The boy reached out his hand in front of him. Though he could not see it, the door was there, just as the voice had said. I shall open that door, the boy said decisively. I shall wait a full 8 days, and then I shall become a god, and all will be revealed to me. 7 days of darkness. At first, the boy could do nothing but sit and contemplate his current plight. It was not long, however, before his mind started conjuring all sorts of thoughts. What wonders awaited him when he became one of the gods? What manner of place was the heaven that the gods called home? How would he treat his human minions once he was one of their gods? And so it went on. He found himself increasingly agitated, anxious to see what awaited him, once he opened the door to the world of light. He kept his resolve for 6 days and 6 nights. But on the 7th day, the boy was overcome with curiosity. In 1 more day I shall become a god, thought the boy. Surely it is of no consequence if I open the door a little early. He reached for the door once more, and traced its even surface. Eventually, his hand came across a small protrusion that felt like the cover of a keyhole. Timidly, the boy lifted it and looked through to the other side. A blaze of blinding light flooded through the keyhole, knocking the boy a full cubit backwards. It was incredibly bright, and yet he simply could not close his eyes. The world on the other side of the door was beyond the boy's human imagination. Its scale and beauty seemed to pierce his very soul. The world of the gods. The thought alone made the boy shiver. But even as he did so, he was plunged into darkness once more. The ever-wandering eye. The boy had failed the trial. Yet he was still allowed to enter heaven and become one of the gods, for they acknowledged his abilities and showed compassion toward him. They could not, however, show the same compassion toward his eye, the one that had peered at the world of light. The eye was condemned to wander, disembodied, through the skies for all eternity. The boy wizard's eye traversed the skies to this day, soaring above the birds, gazing down upon the world below. It can never hope to soar as high as the heavens where the gods reside, however. Indeed, it is trapped between the human world and the world of the gods forever. Occasionally, when it is overwhelmed with extreme dissatisfaction, the eye swoops down close to the Earth's surface, bringing a devastating whirlwind in its wake. These howling gales are known to have destroyed cities and forests, and are rightly feared by ordinary humans. And so the consequences of the boy wizard's folly are still being felt. Alright, and that is pretty much the end of the story. As you can see, it just goes to your other self after that. But we have this interesting page right here with Nausicaa written all over it and a diagram going through. I'll do a quick go through of this diagram, and we're going to translate this page. but it's going to be a little tricky to get it just right so you can see all of the characters. I'm going to put this into Paint so I can show you, because this one is one of the more difficult things to translate because of just how the page is laid out. So I'm going to cut this here, we're going to move into Paint, and I'm going to show you just exactly how you're supposed to translate this. Okay, before we get started, there are some things I want to classify to make things easier for you that are translating this at home. First, obviously, you're going to want to get your Nausicaan so you can translate this, obviously. And we're going to classify some of these sections, just to make things easier on you, like I said, so you can figure out what's what when I'm going through this. Now, this area here that I'm currently making the red mark around, we're going to call this the outer top. That's how I have it in my notes, yeah? Yeah, outer top. And this next section here, this is what we're calling the top edge. And let me grab the next color we're going to be using. And let me just make sure I got this. Okay. Now, this section, and don't worry, I'm going to... Actually, wait, I'm an idiot. I'm using the mouse when I could use my fingers. Okay, here we go. Now, this section right here, all of that to this point, well, not to exactly that point. Now I'm going to have to redo my drawing because I did that a little too early. There we go. To that point right there, that's the inner line. Let me grab green. No, not blue. Not yellow. Green. Okay, and then this one down here is bottom edge. Right? Oh, I'm sorry. End edge. I want to make it follow my notes so it's clear to me as well. Alright, and then the last thing right here, the very last section, this is our outer bottom section. Okay, so now that we've established and assigned all of that, we're going to undo this to make it clearer to see again. And I'm going to... How we're going to translate this, I'm going to give you that just so you have that off the bat, and give you some hints here and there to make it easier on you. We're going to translate this in bits and pieces, and I will give you the answers to bits and pieces. Then at the very end, after we do all that, I'm going to read out the full thing that this translates to. But first, as I said, I'm going to give you the order in which we translate it. We start with the... Whoops. Did not mean to make that square thing show up. Why is there that dot there? There we go, now it's gone. Okay. So, we start reading from the outer edge here. Or, not the outer edge. The... Did I already forget what I just said? The outer top. Jeez. Mine's a terrible thing to waste. Okay, so, we start with the outer top, yeah? And we read all the way here. And then we go to the top edge. And then we read the inner line all the way down to the bottom edge. And then we read from the bottom edge into our line here, the outer bottom, or outer end. Damn it, I forgot already. I said it. Outer bottom. I was correct with my first assumption. And that's how we read it. So let me put the arrow there to make that a little clearer for you. Is there anything else I want to bring up before we get started? Yes, there is. Now, in regards to the translation of this, because the outer edge is two characters, you might think they're words like as or to or whatever, right? That is not the case. Again, maybe I'm being a little too generous with this, but I'm going to be nice and let you know that this is a beginning of... Wait, I kind of made that a little too big. It's hard to make it precise enough. Why don't I use the square, or circle, rather. Okay. And let's make that a little bit bigger if I could. And if I could move that, that would be divine, but... I mean, I'm not holding my breath here. Oh, for goodness sake, it's going to make it hard to... Maybe doing this is actually going to make it more difficult now that I think about it. Yeah, because it covers up the word. Anyway, that is its own word. And this down here, this character right here, that is the start of a word that is on this line. I didn't highlight exactly what the characters are to stop that, but basically know that this onward to a certain point is a word. It is not part of this word right here, the symbol here. That's its own word. I mean, technically we didn't get to the edge yet because we're gonna, like I said, break this into parts. But I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And the bottom edge is exactly the same. Where it's the beginning of two different... the end and beginning of two different words, I should say. I don't want to make it too easy on you and say, this is a single word. This may or may not be the beginning or end of a word. Well, no, it's the end of a word. Or it's its own word. And this one is the beginning of a word that goes into here. Same with this one. This is the end or its own word. And this is the beginning of a word, that one. Okay. Now that all of that has been said and done and you're ready to finally translate this, we're going to start with our outer edge, or our top. Damn it, brain. Work, why don't you? Top. Outer top. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds, sounds fair, to translate. Pause the video. Get your pencils out and write down. Remember that spacing does not exist in Nausicaan. And remember to just think on what words are similar when you're stuck on a certain point. Alright, without further ado, we start. Alright, and your time is up. If you got, on the first day, a wand will be held aloft. On the second day, lightning will arc. On the third day. And that's all you got? You're correct. Now we move to the top edge. And I'll give you, since it's only 2 characters, let's go for 5 seconds. It shouldn't be that hard. Starting now. And time's up. Now we move to the inner line. This one's the longer one of the entire thing, so I'll give you 15 seconds. Again, keep in mind this is all going to be part of the same thing, and as I told you, that little bit where the top edge ended is the beginning of the word here. As such, I'm going to read the next line as if those were one word. So now you have 15 seconds, starting now. And your time is up. The inner line reads, using the little bit of the top edge, "Storm will rage on the 4th day, and the earth will be rent asunder. On the 5th day, a great wave will crash. On the 6th day, flames will dance. On the 7th day, a blizzard will howl." And that's the end of the inner line. We now move on to the bottom edge. Again, you get 5 seconds for this one. It's a short amount. Should be easy peasy lemon squeezy. And your time is up. If you translated it and got D and the letter O, you're correct. Now, again, those shouldn't be together. They are the end and beginning of different words. But now we move on to the outer bottom. So, I will give you 10 seconds to pause the video and translate, and after those 10 seconds are up, we'll begin. and your time is up. On the 8th day, a new king will bring the light, and the world shall kneel before him. All together now, the full translation is, check your work, make sure it's all together. On the 1st day, a wand will be held aloft. On the 2nd day, lightning will arc. On the 3rd day, a storm will rage. On the 4th day, the earth will be rent asunder. On the 5th day, a great wave will crash. On the 6th day, flames will dance. On the 7th day, a blizzard will howl. On the 8th day, a new king will bring the light, and the world shall kneel before him. And that is the full translation, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, I hope you got all of that. With that, we shall end the lesson here. I'm going to just undo everything I've done so you can get a good look at this particular piece of art, because you'll see a little bit of some references, let's say, to things that may or may not happen. Well, I suppose may or may not happen in the past would be a more accurate. I guess it doesn't really mark the story that we just read, I suppose, but this is definitely something relevant to something that may have happened in the past before the game takes place. But as I said, with that, we're ending our lesson for the day here. Study hard, and I'll see you all in the next lesson. Bye-bye.